Hi, I'm Wilka Toppins. I'm a U.S. Immigration and corporate lawyer. I'm the president and founder of Toppins Law Firm in Houston, Texas. And with me is my good friend, Manuel Ortiz. Hi, Manuel.
Hello, good to be here.
Manuel's with First Pathway Partners, an EB-5 designated regional center. And he's the VP of Global Business Development. Did I say that right?
That is correct. You said it exactly right. And I've been in EB-5 since 2013.
All right. Well, good. So we're going to talk to you today about the EB-5 process. I know you've heard about it. I know you've Googled it. I know you've heard your neighbor talk about it in the family barbecue. I know that you probably know a lot about it, but please bear with me because here you have two experts talking to you. We live and breathe EB-5 every day. So what I hope to do through this short segment is to explain to you the EB-5 immigration process from the perspective of an experienced immigration lawyer and what I have to do to assist you in your EB-5 immigration journey. And Manuel is going to follow up and explain to you his perspective from the business side, the investment side, the regional center project side, and what happens on that end. What I do want you to understand, right, Manuel, that these are two different lanes that converge.
Right.
It's two different lanes.
It's very important to focus on the fact that you are involved on the investor side, independent from us, because you're working on the immigration side. You're the one that's preparing the documentation that we're going to talk about here shortly to apply to the U.S. government. We're providing you the project information to complete that application, but we administer the investment, and you work on the investor side of the immigration process.
But for the most part, projects and regional centers like Manuel's work in collaboration and cooperation with the immigration lawyers that are filing your immigration petitions. We're talking, we are discussing, we are informing each other. So it's not like we're not talking to each other.
Right.
It's important, like I said, they're two different lanes, but they have to go at the same time. They have to be moving. Sometimes I get to the immigration side earlier than the investment is ended or finished. Sometimes the investment is ended before the immigration side is finished. Sometimes it's at the same time, hopefully. But the important thing is that you know that you have the support of two professionals, maybe more than two professionals. You've got the immigration side and then you got the business side. So on the immigration side, quickly, it's really kind of two-step process. So the first step is for you to, of course, contact me or an immigration lawyer specialized and that knowledgeable about EB-5. EB-5 is a little niche in the whole world of immigration. And so make sure that you're working with somebody that is familiar with the EB-5 visa process. Secondly, once you get your consultation, you understand what's going on, right at that point, you're going to be trying to select or decide where you're going to make your investment. What are you going to do? What regional center? What project? Then at that point, Manuel comes into the picture. Manuel would then, or his group would discuss with you the investment aspect of the EB-5. Once you decide to work with Manuel, his team, or his project, in this case, then the lawyer at that point will start evaluating the lawful origin of your funds. That's the main thing we do, is to make sure that we can adequately prove where did your investment funds originate from. The government requires, the law requires that I prove that it's from lawful origins. Well, of course it is. You look at me and roll your eyes, I know, but we have to prove it. We actually have to prove it with documents. The good news is that with proper advice and strategic consulting, it is not that difficult to prove. So we move forward, we get our documentation. We filed Form 526E. Form I-526E is the application for EB-5. Along with that, we'll put lots of documentation with the origin of funds, and of course, Manuel and his team, in this case, will provide me the documentation that I need on the business. It comes packaged, it's very neat and clean, I love it. We put it together, off it goes to immigration with your filing fees, and then they will decide. They'll decide to approve it, hopefully, and at that point, they'll send a notification in the mail that you're approved, that you met the eligibility of EB-5. Not yet, not the green card yet, you just got your approval. Then I've got to do what's called the consular processing or adjustment of status, which is sort of a way to get your green card. It's been approved, but I got to get it in your hands, right? So I need to either do it inside the US, we call that adjustment of status, which is really exciting. Or if you're outside, that's okay. We do consular processing in a US consulate where you're living right now. It's kind of flexible. We can discuss that later. After we get you that green card in your hand, you're gonna have a 2-year green card. It's a conditional permanent residency. And you go, why? Why? Because you have a requirement to prove that the project developed jobs and that your investment created 10 jobs at a minimum. You create more, but at least 10 jobs. That's the condition. So they're going to give you 2 years that you have to maintain that conditional residency. The green card is good, no problem with the green card. It just has that little condition. It has no less benefits, no more benefits. It's a standard green card. I just have to come back in 2 years and present a second form called the 829 petition to remove conditions. That's where I prove that the jobs were created, because that's a condition, right? This is when I collaborate with folks like Manuel and his team to provide me that information, which they do very nicely. And then I submit that information, and if it gets approved, you remove the condition and you get new green cards with a 10-year duration. You can opt to obtain citizenship. You can apply to your N-400 application for naturalization 5 years from the emission of the original green card. So that's sort of the path of the immigration side for me. And now I'm going to turn it over to Manuel to explain to you the investment path, so you understand why there's 2 lanes that have to kind of work together.
Right, and so the question is, how do you select a project?
Yes.
Because there are so many out there and there's so much information out there, some of it good information, sometimes bad information. And that's why it's important whenever you make the decision to invest in EB-5 or you're curious of EB-5, it's really important to study the company's track record. How many years have they been involved in business? How many times have they actually returned capital to investors for their previous projects, right? Those things are very important. And I think that for an investor, whenever they're evaluating EB-5 opportunities, it's important for investors to look at it from 2 different perspectives. On one side, the investment. Is it a good investment? Why are they doing it? Does this actually make sense? That's really important because that's going to dictate whether you get your money back. On the other side is this a good immigration project? Are the jobs going to get created? How are the jobs going to get created? Does this qualify for an EB-5 project? How many times has that company actually done it? So for you to win in EB-5, it's got to have both, right? Because if you have a good investment, but the immigration is not very good, you'll get your money back, but you won't get your green card. So you really have to win on both sides of it. For our process, we'll typically send a presentation about a project for investors so they can review it. We'll also send what's called a private placement memorandum, or a PPM, that's going to have all of the risk associated with the investment. It's going to have the business plan, economic studies, and other things as well. Once the investor studies a project, contacts us, asks questions, compares the project to others, and decides that they want to go with us, then what they'll fill out is a subscription agreement, because that is where they're subscribing to the investment. We'll speak to the attorney to make sure that they've completed their source of funds, that they're able to trace where the funds are coming from, how they're going to get to our fund, and then we'll go ahead and give the green light to go ahead and proceed with the investment. Throughout the life of the investment, we're also going to be providing reports to investors, and if they would like more reports, then we can also provide that as well. I think the important thing whenever you're dealing with EB-5 in this business is transparency, because it is a family decision. It is something that is very intimate. It's not just about trying to obtain a return, which is not the motivation here.
And it's a serious investment. So we all know the investment. We've been talking about investment. We haven't said that number. Before we close, what is the legally required investment in the EB-5 law? It's not what he wants or what I want. It's what the law says. The law says the investment is either $800,000 or $1,050,000. Most projects are the lower level of $800,000. Minimum capital required investment for EB-5 if they're located, the project that is going to use the funds is located in a rural area or a target economic employment area, which is sort of an area that needs economic development. So that's the $800,000. If you are investing in a project that is being developed in a sort of rich area or developed area, then they're going to want the higher investment. Of course, most people are electing the $800,000 level. Both levels have the same benefit, no different level. Your projects at the moment, what level are you requiring?
So for our projects, we typically do them at the $800,000 level. And I think that sometimes when investors are coming into EB-5 for the very first time, they may think that, well, I would rather invest at the over the $1 million investment level because it's going to be located in this area. But historically, what you've seen is that Projects don't work sometimes in Manhattan, in Brickell, downtown Houston. So I think what investors really have to look at is the project and what protections are actually in place for that particular investment. So for us, it's important, look at our track record, look how good we've done, but then also look at that specific investment and what protections are actually there for you for that project.
Good. So we've given you a lot of information. We're going to have another segment. Keep following us. We're going to get a little deeper into what type of investment and how this thing works and how you get out. See you soon.